While flying to a speaking engagement, the great preacher, George Buttrick, was sitting in his seat, legal pad on the tray table, furiously scribbling notes for the sermon he was to give, when a man sitting next to him inquired, "What is it you are working on?" "My sermon," George replied. "I'm a Christian preacher, and I am preaching this Sunday." "Oh," the man replied, I don't like to get caught up in all the complexities of that religious stuff. I like to keep it simple. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, the golden rule. That's religion enough for me." "I see," the Reverend Buttrick replied. "Then what do you do for a living?" "I'm an astronomer. I teach astrophysics at a university." "Ah, yes, astronomy," Buttrick shot back. "Well, I don't like to get caught up in the complexities of science." "Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. That's my astronomy." Who could ever need more than that, huh? This particular anecdote is a great introduction to what we will be hearing in the gospel readings for the next few weeks. As we listen to the stories of Jesus telling his parables, it's important to remember that although seemingly simple stories, they are far from easy to understand, and we are fooling ourselves if we think otherwise. Jesus did not speak in parables to try to explain some simple truth, but rather lead people to a capital T truth. Their deeper meaning is symbolic, not literal. Although each parable can be examined in its own right, they are a lot like pieces of glass that, when glued together, create a beautiful mosaic. And when the parables are considered in toto, they tell us a far different story. Today's parable, for example, is the first of several stories designed to give us a better understanding of the kingdom of God, or as Matthew calls it, the kingdom of heaven. And we heard it has three distinct elements: the sower, the seed, and the four types of soil. And when we first hear it, many of us are inclined to immediately do this internal scan, right? That's something like, I wonder what kind of soil I've been lately. Because it's common human tendency to want to compare ourselves against others. When we hear this explanation that Jesus himself appears to endorse, it seems like such a good idea, doesn't it, to glom onto it as some kind of spiritual behavioral measurement indicator that affirms our earthly worthiness. In fact, given the popularity of online quizzes and self-assessment inventories, I am personally surprised that some religious institution hasn't developed a "what kind of soil are you?" Answer these 12 quick questions and find out. And as comforting as this may feel for some, I would suggest it is not at all the point Jesus is trying to get across to the crowds of people who are following him. Here are a couple of clues. First, this parable is not about them, not about you, and not about us. It is about the kingdom of God. Second, if you look closely, there are 9 verses missing in what we read today. A lot of good information is left out. Some scholars even speculate that the whole second part of what we did here was added on later because people wanted and needed a more concrete explanation. Perhaps instead of getting ourselves stuck in the dirt, we need to consider what those who were hearing this story were paying attention to. Unlike those ever-present Pharisees who were hiding out in every crowd waiting for Jesus to misspeak, most of the people who were there that day were farmers of one sort or another, and many of them were poor farmers, in fact. This was a largely agrarian culture where if you didn't know about farming, you probably didn't eat. Where these hard-scrabbling people knew the importance of readying the soil and the value of the seed and making sure each one was as carefully planted as much as they could in those days. Because each plant might make the difference between food enough and going hungry. So when Jesus tells this tale of a farmer who goes out and foolishly takes handfuls of seeds and begins flinging them out indiscriminately, those who were listening must have laughed in disbelief. Who would be so careless, so ridiculous in extravagantly throwing out handfuls of seeds with no care whatsoever where they land? Who is this crazy farmer? Who throws out grace and mercy and love generously and with wild abandon, whether or not we have earned it, deserve it, or because, truthfully, we have done neither, nor could we possibly do either one of those things? But that doesn't matter, because whether we are at a time in our lives where the state of our soil, our soul, feels like it's been hardened by living, or we find ourselves in the thick of the brambles, the thorns of the daily grind poking at us relentlessly as we try to make it just one more day, hang in there, or we're in a period of transition where the very landscape beneath our feet is shifting, or by some miracle we are in a really good place. You know what? When it comes to grace and mercy and love, God is still going to keep showering it all over us like a farmer gone wild. Because who knows when and where one of those seeds is going to take hold and produce abundantly, increasing and enriching this messy and beautiful garden that is the kingdom of God, already present among us now. As co-conspirators in spreading the kingdom of God, you and I, we might not know where the seeds we toss in this world will land, what the plants that take hold will look like, or when, if ever, they might bear fruit. And it doesn't matter to God, who refuses to withhold them from us and expects us to just keep tossing them wildly, whether or not we think they will bear fruit. Because there is no place, no person that lies outside of God's kingdom, outside of God's realm of redemption. And that, my friends, that is good news indeed. Amen.